Welcome to Heart and Hand Extra, the second weekly free show from Heart and Hand. My name's David Edgar, I'm your host, and I'm joined by a new arrival to the Heart and Hand podding family. He's been on a few times now, but every time he's on I get a wonderful description from a listener of him, the latest one being, he sounds like a Scottish version of the spotty kid on The Simpsons. It's Adam Thornton.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether to be offended or be happy, but I'll take happy.
Well, they do say it's better to be getting noticed than not getting noticed.
That's it, free publicity.
Exactly. If it makes you feel better, it's someone who knows you, so I think there may have been a personal slight in there. Lots of stuff to talk about with Rangers this week, although obviously with no real games being played, and although we are playing a first friendly in America later on tonight as we're recording this, so obviously we can't talk about the result of that because it hasn't happened yet. But let's start back here in Blighty. The Jamie Murphy transfer deal was resolved at the weekend. What's your thoughts on that signing, Adam?
Yeah, I think we've spoken about it before. I think it's a really good signing on paper. Hopefully he did really well with Brighton in the Championship. So hopefully he can replicate that form up here. It's certainly, I think I probably wasn't the only one waking up on Sunday morning slightly fuzzy and seeing all the poignant Twitter posts and things about him signing the trip for his dad and stuff. So that gets him off to a really good start right away. But I think, as we've seen with Halliday, sometimes that's not enough. It gets you in the door and it gets you a bit of grace with the fans, but you do really need to start delivering. But I'm feeling quite good about it. That's one of those signings that we've been crying out for. Somebody who just comes in and there's no debate. You're in the starting 11. You're good enough to be there. Go and see what we can do. And it's a massive upgrade because we've struggled on wide left for a while.
It's funny, Adam, because on the show on Tuesday or on Monday or Tuesday of this week with Kevin Thompson, one of the things he mentioned was that it'd always been a bit of a problem area in the Rangers teams he played for, the left, and it's kind of been the same really ever since. It does seem to be an area that we've struggled to find some consistent performer that you could hang your hat on to play left mid, left wing, whatever.
I'd say since Neil McCann, we've not had anybody who's played it week in, week out,
yeah. Because Lovenkrands was more of a striker, although we would use him there. And it just seems to have been one of these regular problem areas for Rangers, so hopefully Jamie Murphy. For those of you who don't know what Adam's referring to, there was a great picture that went about social media of a Rangers strip he'd signed for his dad and given him, and it said "Dreams do come true," which, as Adam says, hits you right in the feels. But yeah, the Andy Halliday comparison is a good one because, yes, we like to see Blue Noses play well for Rangers and it probably buys you a bit more time, but not an infinite amount.
No, it gives you a bit of grace, but only a couple of months, yeah, definitely.
Other transfer rumours then, the kind of loudest ones tend to be that, and from what I can gather, our targets seem to be the main ones, Jordan Jones of Kilmarnock, and there's talk of a bid going in for him imminently. Greg Docherty, the Hamilton midfielder. Jones is said to be valued by Kilmarnock around about 700,000. Docherty slightly less by Hamilton. Rangers interested in moving some of their fringe players on, but I don't think either club are particularly interested. In the case of Hamilton, and this is a sentence that we probably only say in Scottish football, they probably need to sell a lot more than Kilmarnock do because they were scammed by a Nigerian prince style operation earlier this season. That's not something that you really see happening, to Arsenal, is it?
No, yeah, that's right. I think was it about 700,000 as well?
About that, yeah.
Final total of that. In terms of those two signings, I think Docherty, yes, I must admit I've not seen a great amount of him, but if you look on Twitter, the stats guys rave about him constantly. We do probably miss someone who can link midfield and attack. We don't really have that. We've got a lot of good centre mids, like proper centre mids, and then obviously McCrory a bit further back, but we're kind of missing, even with Pena and Windass sitting in the hole there, you're still kind of missing a bit. So I feel like somebody starting a little bit deeper but can make those driving runs into the box could be quite useful. He's very, very young. He's only going to get better, I think, to be playing the amount of games he's played at that age. It's easy to compare him to McCarthy and MacArthur, but if that's the benchmark, then yeah, definitely. Jones, I'm not convinced about, to be honest. I think the money could be spent better elsewhere. I feel like he plays really well in behind teams. Now, 7-8 times out of 10, we're not going to get that space for him to run in. I think we've seen it with O'Halloran. I don't think we should be pushing ahead with Jones. If it was me, I think we could get someone from somewhere else for a bit better quality for that type of money. But that's just me.
Well, the Jones deal is far from certain to go through because there are other clubs interested in him. Norwich City are interested in him, and that sort of ties in towards another rumour that had been surfacing beforehand, but came to light officially, if you like, in that it was clearly released to a newspaper by the players' camp, which is that Stephen Naismith would be prepared to play, and I put this in quotation marks, for nothing for Rangers. Now, what that means is slightly different to he's willing to come up here and we'll all need to sub him to get a pot noodle. It's basically Norwich are looking for a club to pay £10,000 of Stephen Naismith's wage, and what he said is that in order to get a move to Rangers primarily, but I do believe to Scotland in general, he would be willing to just forgo £10,000 of his wages. So, in other words, if he was going to a club in England, and there are Championship clubs interested in him, they would pay Norwich the £10,000. He would get his wage, and I'm just saying for argument's sake, it's £50,000 a week. If he comes to Scotland, then the club that get him won't pay the £10,000, but Norwich will simply pay him £40,000 a week. So that's how it works. So he's not going to be bankrupt, I think it's fair to say. Now there's talk emerging today that Hearts are very interested and hopeful of concluding a deal for him, and some Rangers fans have been a little bit up in arms about that. But the noises that have come from Ibrox consistently are that Mark Allen, Graham Murty don't want him and don't see him as a priority signing. There are people at Ibrox who are interested and do want him, and certainly at Boardroom level there are. My suspicion, Adam, is that story was put there because that story could only really have come from one place, and that was the place it did come from. But it was put there, I think, in a sort of PR thing to get Rangers fans saying, well, for no money, it's a no-brainer, go and get him. And while the deal could still happen, Rangers could still go in for him, he's not high up the list when it comes to Mark Allen and Graham Murty. That I do know.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I guess it's difficult to say without seeing the list. But out of everybody we've been linked with, Cummings, Naismith, Jones, Docherty, I think we need probably four players like that. We need bit more support on the left wing, as I mentioned. We need a bit more support in the kind of number 10 role, and we need a bit more support up front. So if that's the 4 players on the list, then I would say yes, no bother at all. But it depends who else is there. If they're trying to chase someone else from the Premier League or someone from abroad that they think Naismith would be the backup to, then that's absolutely fair. But you can only go on the information you've got. And as far as I can see, I'm very much I was the same as you before he left. I was one of his biggest fans. I absolutely loved him. Obviously, he left in really acrimonious circumstances. However, 6 months for free, Stephen Naismith is just an absolute no-brainer for me. I don't see any debate about it at all. So I'll be interested to see how that one goes. And I can absolutely guarantee that if we don't go for him and he goes somewhere else, he will tear it up in Scotland. Particularly if he goes to a Hearts or a Kilmarnock or whatever, if there's no pressure, he will probably tear it up, and at 6 months' time we'll be in the same situation, but we'll be needing to buy him or whatever. So if it was me, I'd be going all out for it just now.
But by the same token, I remember similar things being said, especially by one podder on here, about Kyle Lafferty. And see, look, on paper, you're absolutely right. Stephen Naismith, before let's put aside the whole rat Judas bastard thing, right, for a second. On paper, the player, yes, you would take him in a heartbeat. But I wonder if there's a whole history of players who have made returns to Ibrox and not been as good the second time round. By kind of common consent, they've not been as good. And the reason for that, I think, and this is just a theory, and I'm quite prepared for you to blow it out of the water, though obviously not if you want to continue as a podder, but I think it comes down to that we have a picture in our mind of what a player is, and then he returns and we expect to see that, and of course things have happened in the interim. They've been away, they've got older, they've picked up injuries, there's more wear and tear on the clock, and you don't get the same player that you're expecting. And Naismith had injury problems all throughout his career, and especially recently. And I do wonder if we're maybe thinking we're getting back the Stephen Naismith we remember, and it was a long time ago now, really, before his injury. You're really having to go back to kind of 2010, 2011 to get the guy that we remember. Does that guy exist? Are we getting that guy back, or are we getting back someone who was a talented footballer but definitely past his peak of ability and has had a tendency the last few seasons to pick up injuries that, although not 9 months like he had with us, are enough to keep him out and then not let him build up to the level of fitness that he requires?
Yeah, it's a good point. For me, I think looking at it as far as the squad is concerned, he would be a massive upgrade on Kenny Miller, which is the position that I think he would probably come in and fill, of that, not back up to Morelos, but certainly the positions that Miller used to play, whether it was up top with Morelos.
All 8 of them, where Kenny decides to play in a single match.
Hopefully a bit more structured than that, but yeah, he's never been a massive goal scorer. I don't think he's not hit 20 goals in a season ever, so that's never really been something that you can think, he might have lost a yard of pace and maybe won't be able to finish. It's never really been the case. I know he started the season that he got injured on fire, pretty much a goal a game I think he got up until the cruciate up at Aberdeen, but who knows where he went that season. But he didn't, and you're right, the injuries do take a toll, but for me it was only 2 years ago that he had that hat-trick against Chelsea, and I know it's maybe just a freak game or whatever, but I think he can still do it. He played quite a lot in the Championship last season for Norwich.
To no great effect.
Sorry?
To no great effect. I mean, the Norwich fans
didn't. Point, but I think you could.
Don't rate him.
I think you could probably argue that for a few people. You could probably argue that for Dorrans. I'm sure you could make a case for Jamie Murphy in terms of he should have got more. We could have got someone in with more goals and more assists. But I think it's a mentality thing. I don't think you ever really lose that. I think Naismith coming in has the mentality of morning-faced nippy wee bastard who will just come in and he will do his best for the club. And like I said, he's still only 31, 32. He's still going to have a decent amount of legs on him. And to go back to the point again, it's not the be all and end all, but it's a free punt for 6 months. If he is shite and blowing out his arse, then are we that much worse off?
No, that's a fair point. I'm interested in the politics of it, Adam. I'm interested in the way that it's been on, because at Rangers at the moment, obviously things are still a bit up in the air. Graham Murty's in charge to the end of the season, we know that, and him and Mark Allen are the guys who are in charge of the recruitment. But I think it's well known that the Rangers board of directors, shall we say, have an active role in the first team, right? I don't think that's it. I don't mean that they're picking the side or anything, so please people don't take rumours with that, but they are involved in transfers and that kind of thing. They don't just stand off and then come in and rubber stamp deals. There are people in the boardroom who want him back, and that's why I was so fascinated by the fact that this leaked out, because it will get a lot of Rangers fans saying exactly what you're saying, and I think more importantly, if he's linked with other clubs, it's likely to come back on whoever didn't want to sign him, especially, as you say, if he goes off and does well in our league.
Yeah, the subplot's quite interesting. You could actually look at it as a lose-lose, because if he comes in, then it's pretty clear that Mark Allen's been overruled, which is not really what you want from the board, to be overruling the man who's in charge of it all. And then if he doesn't come in, like you said, he could go on and have a really good 6 months somewhere else. So it's kind of lose-lose from that point of view. So the subplot of it is quite interesting. The noises are coming out from the board that they want him. Don't really remember that ever happening in any other club, maybe other than Chelsea. That we're also aware of who the board want, but it's at loggerheads with managers, etc. It's quite a strange subplot, so I'll be watching it with interest.
It's interesting to see where he ends up. As I say, he has a place in Ayrshire he's moved back up to. He is looking to come back to Scotland. The Hearts interest, I thought interesting, because I always believed, not based on any, I just always believed that he would, if it wasn't us, it would be Kilmarnock, and I think Kilmarnock fans did as well, to be honest, because he has always spoken about, the place that they have in his heart. But God, if there's one thing we've learned with Stevie Naismith, it's that we're not supposed to believe everything he says. After all, he says, remember, see, because I am one of the ones that still remembers that press conference fairly vividly, and I still think when we were at our lowest ebb, that not only did, leaving was one thing. Nobody hates Stephen Davis, for example, or Alan McGregor. The way he left, I mean, he took time out of his life to shaft every single one of us and twist the knife that wee bit more when he didn't need to. And yeah, I mean, I find that unforgivable. So I admit I wouldn't be broken-hearted if he doesn't arrive back, even though I can see his plus points as a player. Jason Cummings, you mentioned, though, is one I'd love to see at Ibrox, and definitely a name the club are interested in. Now, from what we all read in the papers and whatnot, it's not a case of Jason Cummings is desperate to get back up the road, that he's homesick in Nottingham. It's not that at all. It's more a case that Forest are prepared to let him go. I think he wanted to wait and see if the new manager at Nottingham Forest maybe fancied him, but there's talk that Forest are immediately in for two strikers, one of whom is Patrick Bamford, who of course Aitor Karanka had at Middlesbrough. So if he was to become available, I think Rangers are very, very keen to see if they could get a deal together. For me, he's like a younger version. You spoke about attitude, and even though I'm not a big fan of Naismith, I can see what you mean in terms of that. I think Cummings could provide that with far less baggage, far less injury drama, and far younger.
Yeah, no, definitely. I see them as quite similar in that sense. When Naismith burst through in Kilmarnock, we don't get many Scottish strikers coming through scoring regular goals, so it's natural to compare the two of them. They are quite similar. They're quite nippy and buzzy, and they get in about the box and put themselves about. And Cummings also has the green-faced mentality as well a little bit. So yeah, I would be, like I said last week as well, I would be all in for that if we could get it in. However, we do only have Morelos up front, and I would like to get depth in the squad, so I could see a place. We don't know how Graham Martin is going to play it. He said he likes the 4-3-3. He's played 4-5-1. He's played 4-4-2. We need to have options. With Pena going, there is now nobody, and Miller being injured, or arguably Miller can't play anyway, but there's nobody in that 10 role at all. Baron Windass, who's fleeted in and out. We need a couple of players in there, so if we can get Cummings and Naismith in, that gives us quite a strong team and strong bench. We spoke before, when you look at the bench against Kilmarnock, there's just a couple of kids in Herrera there. What a difference that would be, having either Naismith or Cummings or Jones or one of each on the bench just to come on and see if they can nick something. I think we need to get back to that while making sure that we're not spreading ourselves too thin, as we maybe did, maybe not last summer, but certainly the summer before. I think we spread ourselves a little bit thin in terms of the players we went for. It was more bulk, more quantity over quality. Bringing in a couple of players in this window to instantly improve the team and the squad would be a good move, I think.
Now, Pena has gone off to Cruz Azul on a 12-month loan, which frees up, I believe, around about 1.3 million a year in wages, which is a significant sum. And I do think that we have to ask who sanctioned that deal, to be honest, because that is a ridiculous amount of money to take on what was a complete punt at the time for a guy with no real solid track record. I mean, Bruno Alves is one thing, Carlos Pena is another, but he's off ski now. Before we go on to the next point about him, did you see the video of him at what appeared to be carrying a pair of shorts into training? And it sounds really bad when I say it like this. It's like he wiped his nose on a pair of Rangers shorts, but it wasn't like a big showy look at this. It was like he arrived into Cruz Azul for his press conference carrying these, and then he sort of absent-mindedly swiped at his nose with them. It was a bizarre incident, and I think this guy is destined for the Scottish Football Hall of what was that? He's just such a peculiar story. The whole thing from start to finish. Just
utterly bizarre when I was watching that video. Why has he even got them
in his hand?
Never, why has he even got them in the fucking country? I don't understand. Okay, you keep them as a memento. Why are they in your car? If you think of the actual logistics of it, why have you got them on the airport, and then you're taking them out your bag, and then you put them in your car, and then you're going out and all the media's there, and then you're taking them with you into a press conference for some reason, and then you decide to wipe your nose? I think you're right, it's just utterly bizarre.
It's just Carlos Pena in microcosm, isn't it? If there was something strange could happen, it would happen around him. But with him going, and there's talk, and it is only talk, that Cardoso would be available, Alves would be available, but they certainly Cardoso hasn't been a favourite at all under Graham Murray, although I will say he has gone to America, whereas the likes of Joe Dodo hasn't. So I think that tells you something in terms of would he be considered for the first team. But with the signing, Sean Goss, Jamie Murphy, all the guys we're mentioning, these are British-based players, and there seems to be a conscious effort to shift to a more British-based identity. Scottish-based, even if you look at the likes of Jones and Docherty, Naismith, Cummings, whoever. There does seem to be almost a conscious desire, Adam, to try and take the club in a different direction to the one that maybe Pedro Caixinha took us on.
It's weird, isn't it? We only seem to have two directions we can go in for managers and for players. We never seem to get an even spread. We go from Smith to Advocat, and we go back to McLeish, a safe option, then we bring in Le Guin, and we go back to Smith, a safe option, then we bring in Caixinha, go back to Murphy. It seems that we do the same with the squad. We go way too far in one direction and bring in loads of Dutch players or loads of Portuguese players. It kind of blows up a little bit, and we go back to, or with Le Guin, quite a lot of French players coming in, and then we go back to the tried and trusted. It doesn't seem like we can ever get a balance. We swing wildly from one to the other. But I think you're right. He sounds like he's wanting a bit of a British core. Obviously, with the scouting team still in its infancy, really, I think that maybe makes sense to go with the contacts that maybe Andy Schoolding and Mark Allen have got down south. Go with that for just now. But as we've seen with Warburton, if you go too far that way and it doesn't work out, it's very, very easy for you to get criticised for it.
Yeah, I do understand the desire to, if you like, you've had an experiment and you want to run back to safety. And while the phrase "they know what it's all about" is overused and overplayed, because again, and God, it sounds like we're picking on him, but Andy Halliday is an example that just being a Rangers fan isn't enough, that you have to also marry it to a level of ability. But I can understand the desire to go, well, these guys are less of a risk. You know, they know Scottish football, they know at least British football, they know the size of the club, and they realise that the expectations that they're going to be under. And I can understand the desire to do it, but it doesn't always work that way. Just because they know it doesn't mean that they can adapt it. Now, one of the players who's back at the moment is Michael O'Halloran, and there's an excellent interview on the club's official site that I urge you to go and check out with Michael O'Halloran, in which he states that he knows that this is his last chance at Rangers. There's a guy who I think, again, most Rangers fans, not all, would tell you didn't quite have the mentality so far to have become a Rangers player, if you will, and all that phrase connotates in terms of his ability to handle the pressure, the constant demands, the constant scrutiny. So it's not, although it's a more comfortable solution, if you like, and probably makes it, and does make sense actually, I'm being unfair, it's not foolproof. I mean, it's not a certainty that just because they know the script a bit better than foreign lads that they're going to go in and be able to cope with it all.
No, definitely not. That O'Halloran interview was quite interesting. Where I was watching it last night. Also, that's also a bit of a strange return. I think out of all the loan players, given all that had happened, I know the manager's changed, but given all that had happened, I really, really did not expect him to be coming back. Especially when just before Christmas there was some sound bites from Tommy Wright saying they were trying to get a hold of O'Halloran's agent to extend the loan deal, and they couldn't get his agent. He wasn't answering his phone, so that all seems a bit strange. But like you said, he's back, and we'll see if he can go on with it. He certainly seemed to, I don't know if it's just his demeanour, but he seemed quite aloof and confident in that interview, and he obviously backs himself, and like he said in the interview, he doesn't think he's got anything to prove in terms of being a SPFL player. I know you touched on it in the daily update. Yeah, you might not have anything to prove in terms of you can do it week in, week out at St Johnstone, but you need to fucking step up if you want to play for Rangers. So if he thinks he's made it and he thinks he's coming into the team and he's going to be getting first pick, then I'm sorry, his head's going down because he's not getting played. Do better. Get better, and you'll get playing. Yeah,
it's again to go back to the Kevin Thompson interview on Monday, that the hard work starts when you sign for Rangers. You know, you haven't made it by getting there. You've shown a level of ability to get you there, absolutely, but you then have to develop a whole range of characteristics, and it means that for Michael O'Halloran, and I think by his last chance, I think he realises this, and I hope he does, that otherwise his level is SPFL club. You know, that's as high as he's going to go. Otherwise he's going to be a player that will go to play for Hearts and Dundee, and no disrespect to these sides, they're not as big as we are, it's just a fact. And it's... I think the problem with O'Halloran remains just what you said earlier about Jones, is that we don't play teams who give us space in behind that often. And you have to develop an ability to still be effective and still be able to utilise your pace when you don't have large areas of the park. And for me, O'Halloran lacks that cleverness on the ball. He can beat a man through pace. Absolutely he can. But if there's nowhere to run, I think he struggles, and we saw that time after time at Ibrox last season.
Definitely, yeah. It's similar to Jones for me. You see it all the time. Players play, what a great game they played against us. Let's bring them in. Well, no, because you need to remember we're attacking. We're on the offensive all the time. All it can kind of take sometimes is a long ball over the top, and those players look like world beaters. Pace isn't everything. He needs attitude, and he needs a bit more finesse, like you said. A good example is maybe Candace. I think he's a massive upgrade on O'Halloran, massive. But he's probably the same kind of player, but he's actually trying to adapt and build a relationship with Tavernier, not just be standing on the shoulder of the left back and waiting for the ball to be pinged over so that he can use his pace to get past them. Yeah. He comes back, he works hard for the team.
His crossing from deep's improved this season, for example. He's crossing from deep.
Yes.
I think has got a lot better as the season's gone on, because he knows he's not going to be always able to get to the byline because there's two guys in front of him.
Yeah, he's not a one-trick pony, is the point I'm making. O'Halloran's obviously got past on his pace. Well, Candace is probably faster, I would say. He's probably got past, but Candace has got a bit more strings to his bow. So I think O'Halloran definitely needs to... He's 27 now. He definitely needs to start using his brain a bit more, I would say, and learning when to come short, when to go in, when to link with the forwards, use your right back more, use your centre midfielder more. Really all it takes is that, I'm probably trivialising it, but a simple give and go, and you've got the left back on toast. Don't just try and run past them because they can double up on you. That's all it takes, is just a pass inside and then you go. That type of thing. He just needs to get a bit more brains about him, I think.
Well, that I think leads into an interesting area for discussion. Can you do that at 27? Are you? I realise that players hit their peak and around about that age, and I understand that, but it's because they are fully formed as a footballer. Whereas what we're both saying here effectively is this guy's got a lot to learn. Is it too late though? Are we expecting him to do something that he just won't be able to do? This is Michael O'Halloran, this is who he is, this is all he's got.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Actually, he's now getting to the point where he should be stepping up a level with the skills that he's got, whereas we're trying to say to him, okay, well, you maybe only have 50% of what we need, and can he actually get that extra 50%? Yeah, you're right.
It goes back to the signing though. I don't think Michael O'Halloran's a bad player anywhere near it, but I just don't know if he was the type of player that would succeed at Rangers. And I don't mean by mentality, I mean by his physical abilities, because for some reason Warburton saw him destroy us in a match where we leave tons of space. St Johnstone kept finding him and he ripped us apart because there was all this space to run into. It never happens for us. It just doesn't. Even in an Old Firm match, it doesn't really happen because both teams are at it, 100 miles per hour kind of thing. So the game doesn't really get stretched that often because it's just a battle in every area of the field. Well, it'll be interesting to see. But of course, Adam, we're talking about all this and we're talking about these transfers coming in and we're talking about players going out and all the rest of it, and it's all a bit pointless because, as I'm sure we'll all have seen in social media, but especially in the media, we're going into administration again apparently.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. That's a blow.
It's a shame I've just started this subscription service and stuff, and I wasn't expecting that. But yes, for those of you who are unaware of what we're talking about, and you're the lucky ones, I almost feel guilty for having to break this to you. More Scottish internet nuttery was caused at the weekend when several Celtic fans got together and decided they would go and place bets on Rangers to be deducted points for going into administration for the second time. Now, this isn't going to happen. There's no evidence at all that it's going to happen. But they understood, and fair play to them for this, they understood that what would happen is, of course, a flood of bets, even small ones, in a market like that where it's so small that any bets at all will move it, would lead to the opportunity for the bookmaker to say, we've had a lot of bets on this, issue a press release and get some publicity out of it, which is exactly what happened, of course. Adam, let's talk about the mentality of the people who do this, because I don't understand it, and I'll be honest, the whole internet rumour mongering thing. Now, at the weekend, I posted up someone who connected to the club posted something to me, sent me a message saying, looks like the Murphy deal was going to be a loan initially. And I posted that, and a few hours later, Jim White posted, the deal's done, undisclosed fee. And immediately I had, a few people, but one in particular, coming out at me and saying, you liar, you just make shit up. That's you showing up. And I'm like, well, okay, mate, that was what I heard, and I'd heard from a good source, and I checked it out with another couple. And I don't pass on everything that I'm told for that very reason, that I can't verify it. It's only if it comes from a really dynamite source that I'll pass it on. And generally, as we've done on this show, if it's a rumour, we'll say this is a rumour or this is what we've heard. But it did get me thinking that there are people who go out of their way and must sit and make stuff up. They must create this. You'll remember earlier this season, Rangers were accused of diverting water from a local chapel into Ibrox. And why? What's the mentality of people who do this? Because you're going to be showing up. And yeah, I'd love to just sit and make shit up because it would be easier, especially with having to do a show every day now on the Patreon site. But after the first time it doesn't happen, people will go, you made that up, and your credibility is completely shot. What is this? Is it social media? Is it just the age that we're living in? Or is it just a sign of, as usual, an obsession that certain people have about Rangers that overrides every aspect of their life and common sense?
I wouldn't even be surprised if they actually didn't believe that. I think it's now gotten to that stage where I don't think that the people that are starting the rumours would be savvy enough to think, right, I'm going to put all these bets on, and then odds checker are going to get involved, and then betting's going to get suspended, and then this will happen, and that will happen, and it might, if we get enough noise, it might just happen miraculously. I think they've just read something somewhere and thought, I 100% believe that's going to happen. I'm absolutely brain dead. I'm putting the money on.
But it had to start somewhere. That's what I mean. Someone has to have when Rangers are going into administration. We all, there was one thing I saw. It was, Rangers have to find £31 million by Monday. Rangers' entire wage bill for the year isn't £31 million. If we had to pay everybody a year's salary on Monday, it still wouldn't be close to £31 million. It's just such complete bullshit. But somebody had to come up with that specific figure and start that rumour.
My favourite was Rangers currently sitting 23 points ahead of last place, would lose 15 points by going into administration, which would automatically make them relegated. Why? We're 8 points ahead of bottom place, and there's still 4 fucking months of the season to go. How does that make us relegated? It's just not well thought out at all. It's just ridiculous, really.
It's disappointing that the papers choose to give oxygen to this shite. But again, it's because increasingly their market doesn't contain Rangers fans, because Rangers fans are well aware of how we're considered in the media and don't bother our arse with it. And I think that there is the understanding that their constituency feed off anti-Rangers stories, and that's why you see this kind of bullshit. And nobody in that story from a press side, I think I should point out, has lied, because all they've said is bookies have changed their odds to reflect this, and it is correct because that's what's happened. So there is
it's a free hit though.
Yeah,
it's a free hit without any ramifications.
Yeah, and it's incredibly disappointing. But the reason I find it so distasteful is because if bad things were going to happen to Celtic, and when they did years ago, Rangers fans laughed and we made jokes, and that was it. We didn't actively go out of our way to try and make sure that club didn't exist anymore. It's hatred, and it's hatred that's given a stamp of approval by the media in Scotland, by the punditry in Scotland, because they never call it out. It's disgusting. It tries to remove the joy of being a football fan from other football fans, and it goes beyond, I think, rivalry. We've had the situation this week where Brighton and Hove Albion were contacted by apparently concerned Brighton fans who all had Scottish addresses, saying that Rangers are skint, don't do business with them. And that to me is just, that's not being a football fan. That's not rivalry. That then is getting into just being a deeply troubled and vile bigot with nothing better to do than hate another football club more than you love your own. Now, we're told all the time by Celtic fans we don't exist, right, and we're not a rival. And then their entire fucking existence seemed consumed by us and of ways to attack us and these people are not normal. And instead of, as I say, being kind of ignored, then they should be called out for what they are. They're bigots, they're frauds, they're liars, they're scum.
It's the whole age of social media, isn't it? It's so easy now for somebody just to create a Twitter account and start posting absolute nonsense. And I think we're more than capable of making an arse of ourselves, as we've seen in the last couple of years. We don't need anybody else coming along and making things up that are clearly not true.
Absolutely, and I do understand that people, and I'm one of them, that says the club need to kind of watch this stuff, because it can have an effect on your brand from a marketing point of view if rumours are constantly spread about you. But I do understand that the club feel that they can't respond to every internet nutter, or they would never do anything else. But I do think that, I mean, for me, the really weird thing about Celtic supporters is that, yes, you've got the guys who basically eat a lot of dog food because they can't afford to do a real job because they spend all their day coming up with stories about Rangers. But a lot of these people in this kind of network of nonsense are Celtic supporters who have real jobs, and they're the guys I'd go after. You know, the ones who are lawyers and accountants, etc., that for some reason just cannot grow up and leave this nonsense behind them. They're the ones I would make an example out of. The idiot bloggers and shit talkers, I mean, they're the guys that they want to be sued. They'd love to be martyrs, and they've not got anything to lose anyway. You know, I mean, like I say, if you've got a blogger that's living on fucking 200 tins of Aldi beans per month, then there's no point suing them. You're not going to get anything out of them. But I think the more respectable ones are the guys that I would target, even just one, just to say this shit's got to stop. By all means, take the piss. By all means, that's what I don't get. Celtic are miles ahead of us right now. Take the piss out of us. We did when it was us, and you're totally entitled to do so. But to then just make up lies, and that's what they are, I find so distasteful and childish. And to me, it just points to a deep-seated, well-deserved and clearly never going to leave inferiority complex that no matter how much success they enjoy, it can never scrub away this inferiority complex. And it's tiresome, and I think it's one of the things that holds Scottish football back. I really do.
I would say, actually, just on that point there, I actually quite like Aldi beans. So if we want to sue somebody who's got 200 tins of Aldi beans, I'll happily take 100 tins off them.
Fucking permanent student, you.
I know. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the point about the statements is quite a good one, because if Rangers come out, and I get it damages the brand, etc., but if Rangers come out and put a statement out again, that just blows it up again. More days in the paper, more days publicity. Rangers have denied this, blah blah blah, and then it's a whole, well, have they denied it because it's actually happening thing. And it also would get to the point. I'm trying to think. It would get to the point where, let's see what we can do to make them put out another statement, and let's see how many statements they'll put out, and that'll be really funny. I think just silence and ignoring them. I actually don't even like talking about it, because it just gives a voice to stupid opinions.
Well, I do. I'm the same. I'd love to not be able to talk about it, but when it is something that you have Rangers fans concerned about, I think it's something that we do need to address at some point, because it does damage the brand. There's no doubt about it. It does damage the brand that this whispering campaign gets about, because people hear things, and after a while, when they hear things, even though they've got no basis in fact, they start to believe them. And like I said, to me, I just find it sad. I really do. I just find it tragic that grown-ups, and that's what these are supposed to be, that grown-ups do that. I get the spotty teenagers in their mum's bedroom on the internet. That's fine. That's, since time immemorial, that teenagers have been dicks. But I think that in this instance, it has damaged us in the past, and I think it's something that the club do need to keep an eye on. Now, to happier news, Rangers appointed some new youth coaches this week, as you may have read in the paper. Gregory Vignal, Stuart Taylor, and one other guy. Oh yeah, Kevin Thompson, friend of the show. And I am absolutely delighted for Kev, because he's a really good guy, and firstly, but secondly, he's a really good coach. He's hugely ambitious. Gregory Vignal, an interesting one. Stuart Taylor, a guy with lots of experience. What were your thoughts on the appointment?
Yeah, I thought they were really positive, and I would urge anybody who's not been on the Rangers TV to go and read the article and watch the video from Craig Mulholland today, or yesterday maybe. It's a really, really interesting insight to what they're looking for and what they're trying to do. I think it's good, and I think that the passion side of it is quite good. Obviously, it's the same as bringing players in. You want people who've been there and know what it's all about, and you want winners in the back room as well. However, if you look at the dedication of like Kevin Thompson, as we spoke about, he's out there every day doing his own. He could have got a coaching job with first division, second division, no bother at all, I would imagine. But he's out there doing it on his own, trying to build something just because he's really, really passionate about it. And you can tell, I know you're his new best friend, so you'll probably know better than me, but it kind of comes across in all his interviews. Every time you hear him on Twitter, he replies to pretty much every parent, I think, that tweets him, saying such and such really enjoyed the session tonight. It's just really, really invigorating. I find it quite good to hear. And the fact that he's doing the academy and he's going to be involved in the setup is can only be a good thing. The Vignal appointment, I must admit, caught me by surprise. That was very out of the blue. However, the little sound bites from Mulholland saying that he is moving over here with his family, and we're only saying to him he's coming in for 3 sessions a week plus a game. That's ridiculous dedication, because he's champing at the bit and absolutely desperate to come into Rangers and make a difference. So that, like I said, it gets you in the door and it gives you such a good. The attitude is so good and the mentality is already there that I hope he can kick on from there.
Yeah, one of the things about that, and about, obviously people will heard Kev on this show, that it shows you that if you've got that level of commitment, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, because age is just a number and all the rest of it, but young coaches who have achieved stuff in their footballing career but that are so enthusiastic about getting into the game and continuing in the game that they're willing to do this, that can only be beneficial for our young players, because I think we've all at various stages of our youth career met a coach that's been doing it for years and is bored shitless, and to have this freshness of ideas and this vibrancy around the club, I think can only help us. And add to that you've got guys that are winners, that are proven winners, that have got the medals to show it, then they're going to instill in our young boys the attitude that you'll need to come through at Rangers, because it is different to win at a smaller club. That's just a fact.
Yeah, definitely. I think the interesting point about Vignal as well is he's been doing some work in the French academies as well. The level of players that they're continuing to churn out are absolutely frightening. So if he's been working with players at that level, you would imagine he can impart quite a lot of knowledge on the 14, 15, 16-year-olds at Auchenhowie.
I would like to point out that I am going to be Kev's new best friend, but look who his best friend is. Are you telling me that he doesn't need an upgrade?
That's a very fair point. Actually, I'm sure he will be in the market for one. So
Thank you.
Best of luck.
It's tease. I'm the new best friend he doesn't know he needed or is getting. Now, to move on to our tour, we're over obviously in Florida at the moment to take part in the Florida Cup. First match will take place as we're recording this tonight. It's 12 o'clock, technically Friday morning, but Thursday night. Live on Premier Sports for those of you who have it, but it's live on a channel. It's as live on a channel called Free Sports, which satellite users will have and FreeSat users will have, so have a look for that at 8:30 tomorrow, and I think they're showing it again at 10 o'clock tomorrow night. Then we play Corinthians on Saturday. Now the Atletico Mineiro game, the first one, they've sent along a lot of young players, and Rangers I think will be quite experimental in their opening lineup. But what's your views on these kind of winter break trips, hot weather training, getting in a couple of friendlies? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think this one's a really interesting one. I must say the media team have played an absolute blinder. I think some of the content that's been coming out in the last week or so has been brilliant.
Yeah, Josh Windass Snapchat takeover was excellent.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It's kind of good to see them away from the pitch and away from even like the Rangers TV cameras, etc. It's good to just see them chilling out. I think it's quite a good thing. I think Murty I think it was Rangers TV again today or yesterday, saying they're going to treat it as the 2 games as 4 45-minute training sessions, and they're going to set the team up to go out and play, and then they'll set the next one up. Obviously they're playing 2 games in 2 days, I think it is, so it's probably to be expected. Be interested to see what he's going to try out, a couple of different formations. Be good to see Goss and Murphy, and it will also be interesting to see Halliday and O'Halloran coming back in as well. But I think it's good. I think it's a whole team bonding thing. If you remember back to the summer, we never really got. Obviously, everyone was up in arms about only having 3 or 4 weeks off, so it was right into games right away. So there's probably a bit of team bonding that's not really happened, a bit of fostering mentalities, etc. Jimmy Nicholl being there as well is going to be really important. I think, again, Murty said he's come in and made a bit of an impact right away, and he's letting them know what it means to play for Rangers. So. I think it's hopefully going to be a really beneficial time, even just for the time off, to be honest, and a bit of warm weather training. The IMG Academy looks absolutely unreal. And I think if I'm right in saying that he was saying on TV today, on Rangers TV today, that it's actually a high school, I think it is. And they've got the facilities they've got are absolutely unbelievable, and that's just a big, massive difference from here, where okay, they could have had 3 weeks off being at Auchenhowie playing Falkirk or playing whoever, but what an experience it will be for them. And I think the Florida Cup, although I personally hadn't heard of it, I'm sure I heard a soundbite today saying there's 50 million people in Brazil that watch it. Every year, so it's not going to be a small tournament. It's going to be quite a good experience for them, and I hope it helps us for the rest of the season.
I think if you're going and getting warm weather training and a fee for appearing at a tournament, then it's a no-brainer. You have to take that. It's just such a great, as you say, bonding experience for the team. But very interesting to see how everything pans out. And that's pretty much all that we've got today on here. If you like what you've heard today, then you can hear us every day. Not just me, not just Adam, but lots of other podders indeed, on our subscription channel, which is at patreon.com, patreon.com/Heart and Hand. On there you will get tons of shows, and there are so many shows. There's a daily update where I go through the news, similar to what we've done today, but we also have shows that deal with the Advocate years, that deal with the years 2000 to 2010. We've got quizzes, we've got Q&As, we've got our new show Rangers Bet, where one of our punters goes through and looks at a bet every weekend, hilariously linking to a Rangers player. It's a brilliant show. There are laughs, there's information, there's strolls down memory lane, and if you are someone who commutes, or you're somebody who has a desk job where you can listen to a lot of podcasts, or you go to the gym or whatever and you want more Rangers content, or if you listen to Radio Clyde every night and you think, why am I listening to Radio Clyde? This is your way out of it. $1.99 per month or $3.99 per month for slightly more content. It's entirely up to you. We're sitting at the moment, Adam, I think you said just under 1,800.
Yeah.
So
1,798, I think it was. Yeah.
So lots of people are there and enjoying it, and if you come along, I think you will too. But if not, if you are happy with the 2 free shows, we thank you very much for listening to that, and we thank you for continuing to support us by doing so. We will be back on Monday, where we'll have a roundup of the 2 matches. So all that remains for me to do is to thank our executive producers in London, Mr. Mike Lee and Mr. Paul Myers. Thank my guest today, Mr. Adam Thornton.
Thanks, David.
And to thank you all for listening, and tell you we will be back at the start of next week. Cheers, bye.